I need you, XYZ problem, to transform into the next version of your journey because I want this to happen. So what do you need me to do? No or B? And I would always hear something. And it was
That we say that is so amazing and beautiful. How do you hear something for people listening? How does it come to you?
I always took one of my mentors, Kendall Summerhawk, always used to say first thought, best thought. And when I went into this whole process with active imagination, the key of it is to not overanalyze it. And you're always going to think like, did I just make this up? But made it up from where?
Hi, everyone. I am Julie Edmonds, your host of Channeled, tapping into the wisdom of your soul. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Channeled, tapping into the wisdom of your soul. And this is part one of a very powerful two-part podcast episode. And we are talking to the business alchemist, Mariel Alvarado, also a very, very close friend of mine. She's a spiritual mentor, a soul-led business guide, and the founder of Awaken Divine Feminine. She's helped thousands of women remember who they are, realign with their true authentic selves, and really help them become who they were meant to be. So let's dive right in. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Channeled. I am so excited for today's guest, a very personal friend of mine that I've known for many, many years, Mariel Alvarado. She's also known as the Business Alchemist, a visionary, a teacher, a spiritual fire starter, who also happens to be a digital marketing strategist. Her work is soulful, healing, and deeply transformative. And I know this conversation is going to activate something in you. Welcome, Mariel. How are you?
Good. Thank you, Julie. Thank you for having me. I'm really, really excited to be here with you and just hang out with you, truthfully.
I know it's been years, right? Mariel and I, we've known each other since right out of college almost. You came into business and we started, and we'll talk about that as we get into your journey. So let's just start opening with the awakening. So I have a few questions for you and we'll just dive right in.
Awesome. Love it.
So you guide women into deep remembrance of who they are and the power they hold. So can you tell me about your own path? Like how you're awakening from starting with sales and outside sales, going into this beautiful, deep, enlightened journey to the business alchemist to where you are now. Tell us a little bit about your journey.
Well, that's very interesting you ask because you were part of that journey, right? And so, I mean, Julie, we've known each other for, I think, almost 20 years. And I think so. You know, I've always had love of communicating with people, of just being around people. When I was in college, I studied marketing and communications and sales and psychology, and so I feel like it's always been natural for me to just connect, like the connection with people. So of course, as soon as I graduate from college, I meet the beautiful Julie, and it was so funny. I was actually telling this story inside of one of my masterminds the other day, how I graduated from college. I had all these job offers in these companies, and then I meet you, and I'm like, I just want to work with her, and it was sales. It was straight up sales, meeting people daily, connecting with them. I think it was 100% commission. And there was something inside me that said, full body yes to working with you. And And so that was the beginning of my career. And I say that full body yes because I feel like my entire trajectory has been a series of full body yeses and listening to them. I think that I didn't have an awakening per se, like a lot of people, something bad happens and, all of a sudden they have this awakening. I've been kind of woo-woo my whole life. I remember when my grandmother passed away and I was 16 years old, we went to her funeral and I was really close with her. And I I just kind of ventured off to her backyard and she had a little chicken coop and I found this book. And in fact, I have it here somewhere. Um, it's called The Power Through Metaphysics by Connie Mendez, and it was in Spanish. So I was able to read it. And so that book opened me up to metaphysics and manifestation. And that was that was like my first full body yes. I was 16 years old. So that kind of became like the bedrock, the foundation for my mindset. Even though I was a teenager and wild and crazy and did all this stuff, right? But I think that was like the initial, the catalyst to really stepping into the power of my intuition and letting my intuition kind of guide my path. So working with you, I've learned so many skills over the years. At first, it was that full body yes and journey of working with you, running my own business, my own sales company. And then eventually one day it was just like, oh, this chapter is closed. And I was like, okay, now what's next? So it's
Let's talk about that for a second. So, a lot of people, a lot of women in particular, and I know you work with a lot of women, second guess themselves or not tapped into their intuition. And especially, look, we were young. I mean, I know I'm a little older than you, but still in your 20s, we're still finding ourselves, right? I mean, I know I started my sales company in my 20s and I was just going with, yeah, and guts and blah, blah, blah. But I was always tapped into my intuition too. But a full body yes, what does that feel like for you? Like if you had to teach someone what a full body yes is, what does that feel like?
Well, I think the first thing that informs that is what it doesn't feel like. So if I feel any type of hesitancy in my head, or I just feel like I'm going back and forth with something, um, that's what it doesn't feel like. Right?
So like, let's talk about this. So going back and forth, like logically, like, oh, do I like this? Do I not like this?
Exactly. So, I teach my clients there's three levels of the mind, right? There's the very logic, tangible mind. Then there's the idea mind, and then there's the mind that's completely intuitive.
Yeah.
And so when I get caught up in just like the first two levels, especially the first level where everything is just logical, and a lot of people run their lives this way, right? Most people, it's like numbers, 1 + 1 = 2. This is the logical thing that I should do. Sometimes, yes, sometimes that works. And at other times, um, that's just the beginning of it, and I let it unravel. But a full body yes for me just feels like a knowing. It's like it comes from somewhere between my heart and my solar plexus. It's hard to explain
No, you're
this.
explaining. It sounds good.
Yeah, so it comes from somewhere in my heart, in my solar plexus. It's just like yes. I don't logically know why it's a yes. I don't I don't have even like the idea mind, like that part of the mind. I have a vague idea maybe, but I trust that it's going to unravel the way it needs to. So yeah, so I think that like the first thing I would say is like know what it feels like to not have that. So there have been other times in my life that, of course, I need to make, more logical decisions. And I'm a very intuitive driven woman. So those are hard for me.
I can relate. And like, and I gotta ask you a question though. Let's just go back to, so it's important because, for instance, there's some land in Costa Rica that I was considering buying, and it was from someone, a very high spiritual group of people, and they're creating this beautiful network and community. And I was offered a piece of that land to buy it, not so expensive. And I like jumped on it at first, but then I started putting my feelers out there. And then because it was such an important decision that my logical mind just been, well, I don't know if I'm ever going to visit there. And why would I do that? And do I want to blah, 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 blah? And then so I'm like so conflicted. So when those types of like giant decisions, do you have a process that you go through to how, like, am I trying to talk myself into this when it's really a no?
Yeah. I think the very first step is becoming conscious of what is my ego afraid of, right? And what is can I zoom out of this and see it from from a divine perspective? Like, what is my soul trying to do? Do I want this because from a personality and ego place? Like, I want the Ferrari, or I want the recognition, or I want the thing, or is there something I'm not tapping into? So, and then I've become really, really good at asking myself questions and journaling those questions, because when you journal, it actually gets your all three of your mind, the levels of your mind engaged. And so,
But I never heard of it that way. I've always journaled. I never I never communicated as to like how that works. I just felt that I was tapping into my subconscious mind. My guides are coming through my fingers.
yeah, and that's all true as well. So it's just maybe like a different way of saying it, but yes. Um, so yeah, so first of all, I would sit with it. And in fact, I am going through something very similar right now, because I mentioned to you that I'm looking to open up a local business, and I've been, going to different places, and I'm like, I really like that place and that place, because of this, that, and the other, but there's some, things that I don't necessarily love. So I have to ask myself, where is this resistance coming from? Is it coming from my ego, or is it coming from like truth? Am I not supposed to be there? Because for me, as soon as I know that my spirit, that my soul is on board with the decision, that's all I need to know. I don't need to know the outcome. I don't need to know how it's going to happen. I just need to know that that's the direction I'm supposed to go, and I'll let it unravel. But for me, it's always been like, where is that coming from? Does my soul really want this and putting it in front of me, but then my ego, who wants safety and consistency and patterns, afraid of something.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's weighing those two things for me.
Deep down with hypnotherapy too, when you just said, does my ego want safety? A lot of that is blocks. A lot of that is our limiting blocks too, because our internal deep soul wants you to have everything that's like right for you, but those blocks are, let's go for safety. Let's not put ourselves out there. What if we get judged? Or what if, the imposter syndrome? I'm not saying that this is necessarily imposter syndrome, but let's go back. This is a great segue to going back in time when you and I were running our business together in Miami on Ives Dairy Road. And it was such a fun, magical parking lot with all of those trees hanging down when they would sway during the storms and everything. It was sort of a magical office. And I think at least for me, one of our great whys, I had a few of them up until this point, but one of these great wise people that, stepped into my life, and then additionally yours, was the great late Omion.
Yes.
And I remember I had Lucas, who's 21 almost at the time, but he was still in the stroller, and I was pushing him down, and I was passing this little place called Angel Light, and literally this postcard came flying out. It was just super windy, and so maybe she had some flyers or something, and it just flew out and landed right on the ground, and it said, "Come get your angel reading from Omion." So you can't resist those things, right? Because then she became one of, at the time, one of my greatest guidance teachers, spiritual leaders in the moment. So wasn't that wonderful, those times with Omion?
Oh my gosh. Yes. I mean, Omyan, I've always alluded to the fact that the universe has always put these powerful women in front of me to kind of like open ways and lead ways. You were one of them. I remember when I was in college, I did an internship, and my mentor then, Cassandra, Omyan became that. And it's just kind of Sue now. Like, it's so magical to live an intuitive life because the universe speaks to you and it puts all the right things in front of you, if you can recognize them.
Yeah, that's what I want. That is exactly that flyer flying. I could have ignored that and would have lost a huge part of my life back then if we just kept on strolling by and didn't follow that. It was a little obvious, but at the end of the day, I could have just kept going, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it really is the key to living a magical life is being able to follow and recognize the signs, right? And
Have you had, tell us a story of maybe a great sign that you had. Maybe you're going there.
oh yeah. Okay. So, after we stopped working together, after actually I closed my business, I remember one day I woke up in the morning, and I was like, okay, I think I had just kind of sat at my pool side for a couple months, and I decided to go to New York and see some friends. And I remember thinking, I think I might be moving back to Texas. I don't know what I'm going to do with my life, but I need to do something, you know? And I remember that day, just one of my friends said, well, what about New York? Do you love it? Like, and I was like, yeah, I really like the energy here. It's like a different adventure. I sat down and I wrote a letter, and I said to God, I said, listen, if you want me to come here, this is what I need. And I was like, I need to get paid six figures. I'm not going to live in a shoebox with a bunch of people. I like living well. And I made this list of things that needed to happen or needed to be true if this was the path for me.
So these were non-negotiables. You're like, I'm not moving here unless I have these things. Okay.
I'm not moving here. And I was detached from it as well. I was like, if it happens, great. If not, it doesn't. And I sent my,
But wait, it's really important. Let's just step back for a sec. It's really important to understand the non-negotiables, because sometimes we're like, but I need a big car, and I need the Yara bra, and like a white picket fit and all the add-ons.
right. Right. So for me, it was just like my standards, right? Like the non-negotiable. And I mean, mind you, I was 27 or 28 years old at the time. I shouldn't have had such high standards.
No, but why not? I love it. Don't. You got it, right?
I
I
did.
just want you to have everything
Within a
that
week.
belongs to your soul.
Yeah, within a week, I had like three job offers and an apartment that opened up in the West Village. Like, who does that? Like everything I had said, like kind of just fell into place. So, and that's because I was able to recognize like this impulse and in my heart, and really just like a curiosity of I think I should go somewhere. Where should I go? Oh, I'm going to go to New York to visit my two friends. So that was like one thing. When I met my husband, like I was actually dating somebody else, and I broke up with this person, and the next day I met Bobby. Like it was just I often ask myself like, wow, what could have happened if I didn't follow that? you know?
There's also a deeper part to that, Marielle. It's like, what if I was too afraid to let go?
Yes.
What if
Yeah.
I was too afraid to let go of that business? I was too afraid to let go of that relationship. I was too afraid to let go of my safety where I'm living right now.
100%, Julie. That's exactly right. Um, I've kind of always been a little fearless, but in that capacity, but there have been other times that
I've noticed that about you. It's true. I love that. I mean, the daredevil in you is speaks loud.
I think it's just because I don't get attached to things.
Yeah.
Uh, I've always kind of felt attached to one thing, and that's like this sense of peace and unity that's within me.
Mm.
And that peace and unity is like the only thing that that's my that's the thing I follow. So everything else, it's like, oh, material, like as long as, but with that said, it's funny, right? Because I feel that, but at the same time, here I am writing this letter saying, I'm not going to live in a shoebox with 10 people in New York City.
Abundance, because abundance, when it flows through us, it circulates through us, and then you can give. Look at all of the opportunities you've had to help so many women because of being in the position that you are. And I think a lot of spiritual people think, well, it's selfish to ask for X or it's selfish to want, and I think the opposite. I think you are allowed to have everything and anything you want and let it circulate freely through you and influence other people to know that they can have that peace in their heart, that freedom, that love, that abundance.
100%. That's exactly right. I think, in fact, Julie, I think that one of my issues is having sometimes a little bit of an overly abundant mindset. You know,
So let's dive into that. What does that mean, overly abundant?
well, because I've always felt exactly what you said, like it's always going to be there for me. Like I'm always taken care of. All I need to do is follow the signs. Like I've always had that sense. It has at times in my life made me irresponsible with abundance and just that's the very I study Kabbalah, so I would say that's the very Hasidic part of me is like, oh, the abundance, and it's always been there.
Right.
But then there's this other side that's more um grounded and analytical. And yes, there is this abundance, but let's take care of it and be responsible with it and manage it correctly. And you know what I mean? I've always really thrived in the energy of just flow and energy and abundance. And I'm always going to be taken care of. And I always am,
Yeah.
you know? So,
I also believe, so what I've learned in hypnotherapy, so many people think, oh, I want to flow and I'm abundant. But where is it? But where is it? Because the deep down blocks that we talked about earlier, like, do I really deserve this? Do I really am worthy of this? Is someone else's mind talking through me saying deep down, yeah, but people with money are fill in the blank, or, too much money means fill in the blank. And that's unconscious. And so when it comes to abundance, you have this lovely feeling of, hey, it is and it always will be, and I deserve it because of just being on this planet.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, I do. And it's interesting what you're saying because one of the things that I teach in my body of work in my programs is that you can either manifest from your soul or you can manifest from your traumas. And
I'm gonna do both.
and we do both, and we do both. But the more you step into healing and the more you make that part of your life, like a lifestyle, whether it's through therapy or hypnotherapy, or, as you know, I do energy healing now as well. Um, when that becomes a lifestyle, you can become more and more of who you really are,
Yeah.
which is your soul, which is your higher self. That that programming can actually download into your consciousness and into your body, and you can start making decisions from that and creating from that. But I don't know why I just explained this, but or
No, I know
why.
why. I know why. Keep going.
Yeah, so it's really important to learn, like I said, to heal and strip away the things that are not yours. Because manifestation and creating things, abundance, um, it's something that we all do. We do it unconsciously. We create, for the most part, a lot of people feel like they're creating what they don't want, right? Because they're focusing on the things that they don't want because they have all of these unhealed parts within them. And so they create from that.
It's a mirror.
It's a mirror, it's projection. So when you start stripping away all of that and you start downloading really who you are, you're going to create completely different things in your life and attract different people. And and so when it comes to abundance, I think, like you said, most people are doing it from the unconscious scripts. And listen, I have my own. I mean, we all have something in relationship to it. But yeah, so I think we started the conversation because I have a very unusual abundance problem. I've really had to like learn to reel myself in and be
Well,
practical.
maybe that was your path too, is that, the reckless side. Look, the one thing I can definitely have learned, it really changed my life through hypnotherapy. And there's so many modalities, right? Mine has happened to be this, like found me. And it's so true. In the beginning, sometimes we overperform, we overachieve, we're over aggressive, we're over, I need this, I need that because there's something that feels not enough. And so success is attached to love, or I need to have this to have that. And then you're chasing, chasing, chasing. It's one of the profound things that I've learned. And, when you're around all that, and you're right, people do, and a lot of high performers who we've been surrounded with, or at least I have been my whole life, have been chasing something. And as soon as I learned hypnotherapy and healing those parts about me,
Mhm.
it's weird because as much as you chase, you're only going to get so much because it's like manufactured manifestation. It's like I'm manufacturing, I'm making it, I'm controlling it, I'm molding it myself because of letting go of some things and scraping out that system. It's like almost, and it was probably a huge, huge part of my life the past just 5 years, letting go and getting rid of, rewiring, and just realizing, oh my God, because I used to be so nervous to speak and like people are judging me and all that's gone. And it really, what it did is opened up this vessel to just
Mhm.
receive
Yeah.
and be open and receiving whatever the next part is in my life. And that's how I've been wanting to write a book for 25 years. The universe chose me to write this specific book. And I kept saying in the future, in the future, in the future. But the future is always the future. So the more I go, the more it just stays in the future. And when I realized to bring that future to me and just receive suddenly, miraculously, like all those synchronicities and coincidences that are not really coincidences, they're just lined up when you're ready for them. I ran into some people that helped me collaborate and write the whole thing. So you said something extraordinarily interesting a few minutes ago when you were writing your list. Let's talk back to this.
Mhm.
God, if you want me to have this, I need these things.
Yeah.
So it was almost like a soul driven, God driven, God, if you want me to have these, put these things in place for me to have them. So that's not manufactured. That's completely from a source of creator. Can you talk to that?
Yes. Um, it's true, Julie. Like I go back to
By the way, I'm going to start using that. Oh, I love that. I've never said that. God, if you want me to have this, and then if you don't, get the things you want, it's data, right? You have to look at, do I need to heal part of me, or this is just not meant for me? I could go back to the land in Costa Rica.
exactly. Of course. It goes back to, where are we creating from? Am I creating from my ego, from my wounded child, from the part of me that is looking for validation, from the part of me that is trying to prove something? We have all of these aspects inside of us. I am really deep into archetypal work. And a lot of my healing happened initially, like, especially after I became a mom, because I learned to speak to all these different aspects of myself.
How did you do that? Can you walk us through how you did that?
It was really magical, actually. I,
And the reason I say that because well, we all have these things. We all have those traumas. And when we say trauma, it doesn't mean something happened to you that was horrible. It was just a series of belief systems, not what happened, but the beliefs we made up about ourselves and the beliefs that we formed at a very early age that just now are ruling our life. How did you go back and relive?
okay, so it was really interesting. I came across a book that I just felt like I needed to know something. Like there's something I've forgotten and I can't figure out what it is. And it's not in the New York Times bestseller. It's not like all of this stuff that just kind of stays in my mind and feels good for a week and then goes away. And so I came across this process of meditation, and basically the premise is there are all of these different archetypes and aspects of ourselves within us. The archetypes are universal forces. If I say to you, describe to me a queen, like you instantly get ideas, adjectives about a queen. She's powerful and poised and takes care of her queendom, right? If I say, describe the mother, or describe the maverick, or describe the explorer, these are all different energy personalities, you could say, that are ingrained into human consciousness, universal consciousness. And so I believe that we have all of them in different proportions.
Yeah.
So you can have, and which is why with my business clients, we always give them archetypal tests, because I need to know which archetypes or forces are running their brand. Once I know that, then I can start helping them create their brand message and the name of, all of that stuff. Anyway, so when I started, I loved this concept, and I started doing this. It's kind of like a self-hypnosis, truthfully, where I would go internally into my inner landscape. I would summon my higher self, or my guide, to be with me within this internal landscape. And then I took all the things that were happening in my life that were not necessarily that I don't know, something happened in my life. I took that theme into my meditation, and I asked what archetypes are making up this situation. And I have a great imagination, so I guess it worked well for me. Actually, but Carl Jung talked a lot about this. It's called active imagination, and it's basically going within and seeing what shows up without overthinking it. And so when I asked the question of what inside of me created this situation in my life, I did the very first thing, the most powerful thing in that is that I take responsibility for what's happening in my outer life. So as within, so without, right? So that's actually a huge thing that anyone can apply. But it's hard too, because then if something bad happens to you, how do you want to take responsibility for that? Like there's also crazy people out in the world and circumstances, and we live in the densest part of the universe, right? But in this method, I basically said everything in my life is a reflection of what's of me.
I believe that so much. I believe that so much.
Yeah. So I took that responsibility, and that meant that if my neighbor's doing crazy stuff or wanting to poison my cat or whatever, it's my fault. Like there's something inside of me that's causing that. And when I did that, every circumstance or, anything going on in my health, my relationships, my world, my business is a reflection of what's going on inside. So I would go within and I would speak to my problems. I would negotiate with the archetypes and the parts of me that were showing up in that problem. And then after and so I gave myself, the second thing is I gave myself the permission to be a negotiator with those aspects of myself, to ask questions, to say, what are you looking for? I need you, XYZ problem, to transform into the next version of your journey because I want this to happen. So what do you need me to do? Know or be? And I would always hear something. And I'd always say,
That is so amazing and beautiful. How do you hear something for people listening? How does it come to you?
I always took one of my mentors, Kendall Summerhawk, always used to say, first thought, best thought. And when I went into this whole process with active imagination, the key of it is to not overanalyze it, and you're always going to think like, did I just make this up?
Mm-hmm.
But made it up from where? Because it's coming from somewhere within you. So regardless of what was showing up, I always took the next leap of faith and asked the next question, kind of like the way I do my outer life as well, right? So so yeah, that's how I don't did that answer the question?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just
No, it did, because I mean, just really quickly with everything, it overall crosses and overlaps. And just to keep referencing back to hypnotherapy, I bring someone into an alpha state, and if they can really get into that theta state, I've learned from some greats like Marissa up here, and now I'm studying with Dolores Cannon, the late great Dolores Cannon. And it's just getting into those states, of those flow states that are scientifically, we have these different brain patterns, and those first thoughts really come from that alpha, that subconscious, that theta, that highest point. And then the logical left brain, she calls it Mr. Stupid. Dolores Cannon calls it, well, we're not going to let Mr. Stupid take over the left part. Mr. Stupid has a place. 2 + 2 is 4, and things like that.
exactly. That's the first level of the mind.
Yeah.
I love that.
But then that first thought, best thought, even when we're doing hypnotherapy, it's asking questions and giving the problem a voice. And the first thing that comes, of whatever it comes, that doesn't even have to make sense at the time. Just say it. It doesn't have to make sense. And then write it down, think about it, let it go. The puzzle will put itself together.
100%. So, when I started doing this practice and really taking everything that was going on in my life as starting points and I would literally wake up like at 5:30 every morning before my kids to do this for myself. And it was magical.
How long did it take? How long was your process? Can you walk us through like A to Z in the process?
Like individually?
No, just you wake up at 5 a.m. Not, I have a cup of coffee or whatever. Just like what is that? How long is that process?
Yeah, so when I was really committed to the process, I would wake up like at 5:30, and I always needed like 15 minutes to just kind of like settle in, and I need my cup of coffee.
Right.
And then I always had this spot in my living room that I could see the sunrise, and I was just like, I sat right there every single day. And funny enough, I never had like a timer or anything like that, right? I just went in and I knew how to go into the alpha state, and I knew what I wanted to work on, and I always had a notebook because I realized that if I spoke to XYZ problem and that turned out to be, a combination of the Empress and the Magician, I always heard inside of my meditations very interesting things, like, and that's how I knew that I wasn't making this up. I was like, I would never say that in my conscious state.
Even vocabulary words, like where did this come from?
Yes. Yes, and sometimes it was just like, and there were other times that I got like a word, one word. But then once I was out of the meditation, I had my journal. I would journal it, and then the rest of the information would just come through my journaling, you know? So, so yeah, so that's what it looked like. And it was always 45 minutes. And I would open my eyes and I was like, that's so funny. Like internally, my system is designed to be there. Like my capacity is at,
And then it's like it just comes out.
yeah, it does. Exactly. So here's what's really interesting about that. So when I was doing that process, my entire life started to change. Like my outer world, my business, my relationship with my husband, my everything started to heal. And what was really cool about that, Julie, and I was actually going through a lot at that time. That's when I was diagnosed with a brain tumor. I was transitioning from one business into another. It was just a lot going on. My relationship was like very stagnant. And I knew I had no control over any of it. So the only control that I knew 100% that I had was over me.
Wow.
And the belief that everything that was happening, as sucky as it was my creation.
That is profound, and that is awakening, and that is evolving, and that is so difficult for so many people to take responsibility of their external world. It is
Yeah.
so difficult. And I'm not saying an earthquake happened or something, you know, are we responsible? Maybe as a collective consciousness, but but we're talking about the people around us, the stagnation, the stuck, the blocks, the why am I doing the same thing I've always done and not getting the result that I want?
Exactly. And so that's why I was saying earlier, like for anyone listening, if you can literally get yourself to just take your power back, don't think of it as I'm taking the blame for everything. No, I'm taking my power back. I created this, which means I can create something new, right? So when this is really cool because it's kind of like a bridge to where I am today. So I did this process probably like religiously, probably like for 3 years. And I would go inside my inner world. I would meet my guide, and my guide was this male. His name was Emmanuel. And I don't know, like, and my higher self was always there with me. And so it was so fun because it was like taking this journey. I was always on this adventure with Emmanuel and my higher self, and like meeting all these different aspects of myself. So of course I was leading a magical life, you know, and sometimes they would, to ground what I would hear from a problem, I would ask them, what can I do in my outer world to transform this energy? And it was really fun to hear, like, go buy a Happy Meal and give it to someone, or like to, you know, like water this plant 3 times more, or it's like weird stuff. But to actually like do the physical thing, that's really just a symbolic thing of what's going on inside.
Wait, really? Let's back up for a second. I love that because that's just tiny little exercises to start tapping into how brilliant and intelligent are our highest, like in your case, Emmanuel. Go water this plant through. Well, that's stupid. Well, just do it. Do it. Because you do that, the next thing will be go play this lotto ticket or whatever. You know, it's like you're going to get bigger and bigger. Just do the tiny things, and then you'll trust the big decisions, right?
That makes so much sense, Julie. I've never broken it down that way, but yes. So I would just trust the little things, and they were fun for me, and they were my little thing, my I don't know, it was just so cool to do that. So I always believed, and I teach this inside of expansion energetics, like anything that you do on the inside is going to have an effect on the outside. How can you embody that with more joy? How can you, so, like there has to be an equilibrium. I am not someone who believes that you can meditate your way into success. I don't believe that. I believe that there has to always be an action. In fact, in my digital agency, my entire team, we live by stay and flow, but get it done. you know?
Yeah, there's got to be inspired action, right?
Stay and flow, yes, but get it done. And in the spiritual community, there's a lot of like, bypassing in that capacity, like, oh, just stay in, just follow your bliss. Yeah, but you have to get it done because that's why you have a body. Like you have to do the thing. So, back to Emmanuel. So one day, 3 years later, Emmanuel disappears. And it turns into like this woman who's beautiful and looks like Naomi Campbell. And I'm like, who are you? Like, where is my guide? And that's when I was like, wait a minute, this is my inner world and I'm in control and I made you up. And he wouldn't come back. Like he was gone. And all of a sudden she said she was my new guide. And I was really hurt.
Bye, Noel. What happened? It's the letting go process, right?
It was really weird. Like, I just couldn't understand. And that's when I knew that what I had gone through and my entire process was real. Like, I'm not making this shit up. Like, why isn't he back? I can just imagine him to be back, and he wasn't. So, so then I kind of knew that I had reached some sort of like capacity. And by this time, I had already undergone my surgery. I actually lost almost my entire 90% of my hearing. But I had done this process every single day, along with some other manifestation things. And I got my hearing back. My surgery was very successful. I launched my coaching practice. I had a group program. I remember, in fact, I was like signing up so many clients that I was like reaching like the limit of my abundance capacity. I was like, how can I really make this much money doing something that I absolutely like love? Like, is that right? Like, you know what I mean? It was like,
And those are not your voices. Those are those limiting little childhood, can I do?
like, am I doing something wrong? Why is this so easy?
Thank you for listening to this 2-part podcast with Mariel. And if you really like this episode, please make sure to subscribe and come back for more